Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Goober Philosopher coming back to you, and I had a topic today that I recorded a couple weeks ago, and I'm gonna try to redo this topic because it was a little difficult to talk about. Not that it's a difficult topic, but trying to organize my thoughts in a way that made sense. I kept listening to what I recorded, and I wanted to try this topic one more time, see how this turns out. So, something I was thinking about a couple weeks ago was the idea of what's more important or what's more useful, intelligence or organization. Now, in this example, the way I describe intelligence has to deal with innovation, and the way I describe organization has to do with how you organize your resources, and get results with what you have. That's organization. Now, in my opinion, in this paradigm, I guess you could call it, 9 out of 10 times, I believe organization is much more useful than intelligence. Now, I'm not saying intelligence isn't important, and we'll get into that. But the reason why I think organization is more important is because organization is the currency of implementation. And it's usually more of a challenge to implement an idea into a concrete object or thing or solution than it is to just come up with ideas. Now, I'm not saying intelligence isn't important, and in order to get to innovation, you need to have curiosity. So, if organization is the currency of implementation, then curiosity is the currency of innovation. And more or less, innovation is a good thing. I mean, it's a great thing. It's great. It's good to be curious, and it's great to innovate. If your curiosity leads to a unique solution that can help the world, that is worth your time to explore what's out there and find applicable solutions that lead to some of the best stuff we have today, such as the internet, AI, autonomous cars, everything that's coming out right now on the edge of technology comes from an original idea that gets built upon curiosity, but it doesn't actually become something without organization. And I'm talking for just the common person, the unique 1 percentile people that are, leading the world in business and technology and science and all that. I would say curiosity becomes much more valuable. But the thing I've noticed with just like everyday smart people, not the 1%ers, but just people you meet who are maybe one standard deviation from what's average. Like when you get past the one standard deviation, get into the second standard deviation, you're talking about people that are just killing it intelligent wise and coming up with solutions that you can never even dream of. But for the people that are just like slightly above average in intelligence, I would say organization's much more important than intelligence, because I've met a lot of so-called intelligent people, and I find that they have some of the most difficult times to get successful outcomes. Now, you can't always control the outcome, and most times you can't, but the steps that they take lack organization in what they're pursuing. Like, I've seen people with great ideas, but the way they got to actually implementing that idea, it actually failed. And it wasn't because the idea was wrong. It wasn't because it was a bad idea. It was like, you have the base, you have a blueprint here, but how are you going to go from blueprint to like actual structure? Like, how are you going to actually create? How are you going to become a creator, right? And to me, the only way you go from I have a good idea or a great idea to having a real tangible solution is organization. What is organization? Like I said, it's being very resourceful with what you have. So that's your time, your money, your focus. What are you investing in with your time? If you're, like I said, or I've said in my previous recording, and I'm going to say here, it's nice to read philosophy books, but what I've noticed is if you're spending all this time just coming up with theories and speculating on the world that is, and you're not focusing on what's actually there, the disconnect from your imagination to a solution will never be connected. You're never going to get something tangible just sitting around all day pondering thoughts or just kind of speaking out loud. That's another thing. Like people, if you want to get to an actual tangible solution, talk less about what that solution is and just do what the solution is. Just like use some kind of inspiration to just do what you think is right and then talk about it after the outcome becomes something that's tangible. But just sitting around talking is something a lot of intelligent people are guilty of. The saying Rome wasn't built in one day. It's because, first of all, you had to have the idea of a civilization. But civilization is nothing without organization. I mean, we built cities and countries on the concept of like organize groups of people with laws and all the other things that make society function. But you don't have that functionality without the organization. I've been to cities in Europe where they're dysfunctional. I've been to cities in Europe where they're more functional than the US. And it's based on how organized they are and how they implement the rules that everyone has to agree to. And I'm not going to get into government and all that in this video, but I'm just getting into the idea of what's more valuable, right? Innovation or implementation. And I would argue it's much harder to implement than it is to just come up with ideas. You and I could talk and come up with ideas and brainstorm within 10 minutes. It could take 10 weeks to actually implement those ideas. And the only way you're going to get there is if you're organized. So hopefully this wasn't too much of rambling, but I just wanted to get on this topic because I've seen it a lot where people who I would argue are intelligent don't have good outcomes. And it usually has to do with their daily habits, the organization that they lack. And if you want to get from just talking about cool stuff to actually doing cool stuff, 9 out of 10 times, organization is going to be more important for the everyday person than innovation or intelligence. So hopefully this video was helpful. It wasn't very long, but it was just concept that I thought would be interesting to talk about. Anyways, I appreciate you listening, and I hope you have a good day. Goodbye.